so it's an antique loan, but it's poetic license. England was bigger in the 17th century. Something roughly the size of France. Curved leg of beef with a kink where Wales should have been. Brands singed the flesh with ink. I watched the ornate capitals smear that joint of meat as I spun. Scotland was the hook on which it hung, river-veined. Dangling in blue air, it focused my eye. Swollen limb, white membrane of coast. It's been something of a struggle actually to write about myself, which might seem slightly odd, as I said, because I suppose people would naturally think it's one of the purposes for writing. And I've had obsessive compulsive disorder for most of my life really, and it's not a pleasant thing at times when you get real anxiety. It's quite hard to actually describe the levels of anxiety you actually get, and this is perhaps one of the ways I find easiest to describe it. I've just called it obsessive. I'm not serene. There's too much fire and steam brewing, blazing within the furnace of my head. I am the train that cannot slow when I see red. I've always been very interested in ancient history and kind of reference to Pythagoras really. It's called Note to a Greek Guru, and it makes a lot about those sort of ascetic, anyway, I'll read it to you. I had a friend who joined your cult, that clean living, all male, no sex thing. Days full of hypotenuse and grapefruit and cutting fingernails with the wrong hand. After 3 months, he could quote the angle of every mountain peak in Greece, but his hard bed was soaked by recurring wet dreams. You gave him some melon, told him to sit tight and think of prime numbers up to 50. He got to 41, ran off and married a Bedouin woman. He can never look at a pyramid without becoming fearful. Commuter. I left the platform just as a monkey was making love to the railway porter. 3 briefcases carrying zipped up businessmen strode into my carriage and dumped their belongings in cages above. I sat next to a woman who had tarantulas and bananas sewn into her cardigan. Every so often she would pull one off and eat it. The spider's legs crackled in her mouth. We passed stations without names, yet each was made with a different colour chocolate. Engineers in orange coats were gnawing a block into place, while the foreman looked on, although he had no eyes. My stop was green. The train rolled to a halt, controlled from above by the hands of giant children, and I got off, had my ticket stamped in the Coke machine. As I walked to the exit, I could still see the signal lights, Spanish lemons suspended from snooker cues. How many more do you want? 2 more, Roy? 2 more? Okay, I'll do 2 more. Just try and find. This is another one, I'll do this one. I've always, again, another thing that's fascinated me was Weimar Germany, that period in German history from around 1919 to around about the time Hitler came to power in 33. roaring Germany. The hall gyrates to jazz, Berlin in the era of quick money, hot vibes and bare breasts. Men and women consume drinks and each other with a voraciousness that knows no future. The mark and the government change as quickly as the lights. Financial political go-go girls who live on dalliance while the Negro blows his horn. Here the veterans, one-legged, who sit outside for scraps, are forgotten. Versailles and the Kaiser are forgotten. Under the giddy atmosphere of cocktails and collective heat, each head houses a solitary amnesiac. I've tried to evocate that whole feeling of what it must have been like to live in 1st century AD Ephesus, because in some ways they were beyond us really. I mean, we flatter ourselves we're technologically advanced and progressive, but when you actually look at what they were doing 2,000 years ago, it puts us in the shade sometimes. Anyway, Ephesus. Late afternoon light teases my face with a promise. The slow reduction of heat on skin, on stone. My gaze turns from arch to column to statue, looking for the slightest flaw in smoothed marble. My fingers follow each curve, the beautiful nose of this noble woman, seat rims in the men's latrine. In the shade, I walk on wide streets, avoiding the chants and stares of tired traders, the smell of stray dogs licking spilt water. I make my way to the library, brushing sailors and women leaving the brothel or commercial agora. I need to match my findings to volumes housed in the cool quiet. Sweat stales beneath my tunic, while others, wealthier than me, do nothing but wash. I give up searching the documents I need just before dusk. The mosaic floor darkens as it cools. Outside, small birds tear bread from the terrace. Early traces of evening wind kick up the day's dirt.